The massive viewing screen in the Imperial Council chamber displayed a small blue planet, spinning slowly against the backdrop of endless stars. 12 ancient beings sat around a crystal table, their eyes fixed on the unexpected discovery that would soon change the course of galactic history. High Commander Reed, the oldest member of the council, stood up from his ornate chair. His gray skin wrinkled with concern as he pointed at the holographic display. This species calls themselves humans, and their planet Earth. Our border expansion scouts found them just beyond the edge worlds. The other council members leaned forward, their interest piqued by the unusual tone in Reed's voice. Unlike most species they had encountered over their 10,000-year rule, these humans hadn't been logged in any of their ancient databases. "Show us their technology level," ordered Council Member Blake, her crystalline form shimmering under the chamber's soft light. The display changed, showing various images from Earth, primitive space stations orbiting the planet, small colonies on their red neighbor world, and warships that made several council members chuckle with their basic design. "They haven't even developed proper energy shielding," noted Council Member Turner, his tentacles waving dismissively. "Their vessels still rely on metal armor." "How quaint." Reed clicked a button, and new images appeared. They showed humans fighting humans, tanks rolling across deserts, ships battling on vast oceans, aircraft engaging in aerial combat. The council chamber grew quiet. "This is what concerns our xenoanthropology team," Reed explained, his voice grave. "Most species we encounter have unified long before reaching space. These humans, they've achieved space travel while still fighting among themselves." Council Member Blake's crystal structure darkened with worry. "How many wars have they fought?" "In just the past 100 years of their history." Reed consulted his data pad. "They've engaged in 2 planet-wide conflicts and countless smaller wars. They call their planet-wide conflicts world wars." "Barbaric," muttered Turner. "They clearly need our guidance. I propose immediate integration into the Empire." The council members nodded in agreement, except for Reed and Blake. The High Commander played one final recording, a message from the head of xenoanthropology. A holographic figure appeared. Dr. Ward, her eyes filled with concern. "Honorable Council, I must warn you about the humans. Their constant internal conflicts have not made them weak. They've made them strong. Each war has driven massive technological advancement. Their weapons evolve faster than any species we've studied. More importantly, they adapt. Where we perfect a single way of doing things, they create dozens of solutions to the same problem. They call it thinking outside the box." The recording continued. "Most concerning is their entertainment. They spend significant time imagining and preparing for conflicts with advanced alien civilizations. They've developed strategies and technologies specifically for this scenario. My team strongly recommends either peaceful contact or avoiding them entirely." The recording ended, leaving the council chamber in silence. After a few moments, Turner laughed, his tentacles swaying with amusement. "They imagine fighting aliens. How primitive. Their entertainment shows their fear of superior beings." One by one, the council members agreed with Turner. Only Reed and Blake remained hesitant. "Perhaps we should study them longer," Blake suggested. "Their adaptability could make them valuable allies rather than subjects." "The Empire does not make allies," Turner declared firmly. "We bring civilization to the uncivilized. These humans clearly need our guidance to evolve beyond their violent nature." The vote was taken, 10 in favor of conquest, 2 against. High Commander Reed looked at the image of Earth one last time before the display went dark. He couldn't shake the feeling that the council was making a terrible mistake. As the council members filed out of the chamber, Reed heard Turner joke, "What can these humans possibly do against an empire that has conquered 1,000 worlds? Send their primitive metal ships against our energy shields." Reed whispered to himself, "Perhaps it's not what they can do now that should worry us, but what they'll learn to do once we attack." The decision was made. The Galactic Empire would bring civilization to Earth, whether the humans wanted it or not. Little did they know, They had just started a chain of events that would shake the foundations of their perfect society. The Mars Defense Command Center buzzed with activity as General Thompson stared at the massive screen before him. The alien message had arrived 20 minutes ago, transmitted directly to humanity's primary off-world military installation. His weathered face remained calm, though his knuckles turned white as he gripped the command console. "Play it again," he ordered, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. The alien message flickered to life once more. A tall, gray-skinned being appeared, speaking in perfect English. Their advanced translation systems had already decoded Earth's languages. "People of Earth," the alien announced, "I am High Commander Reed of the Galactic Empire. Your world has been chosen for integration into our perfect society. Surrender your autonomy, and we will guide you to civilization. Resist, and we will be forced to demonstrate our power. You have 48 Earth hours to respond." The message ended, leaving the command center in tense silence. Around General Thompson, the world's top military leaders attended through holographic projections, their faces grim but determined. "Well," said Admiral Rogers from his Pacific Fleet Command, "they certainly don't lack confidence." Colonel Martinez, head of Global Strategic Command, leaned forward in her hologram. "Our deep space sensors are picking up their fleet. It's massive. Thousands of ships, technologies we can barely understand." General Thompson nodded slowly, then pressed a button on his console. Another screen lit up, showing hundreds of classified files. "Operation Watchman," he said. "For over a century, we've prepared for this day. Every major military power on Earth has contributed to this plan." The files showed decades of secret technological development. Ships built to withstand energy weapons, armor designed to adapt to unknown attacks, and weapons created to counter advanced technological civilizations. "They think we're primitive because we still fight wars," Thompson continued. "They don't understand that our conflicts have taught us more about warfare than their peace ever could." Admiral Rogers smiled grimly. "Our satellites show they have perfect formation, flying, perfect coordination. They haven't had to adapt their tactics in thousands of years." "Because nothing has challenged them," Martinez added. "But we adapt with every conflict. We learn. We evolve." Thompson straightened his uniform. "The question is, do we try to explain this to them, or let them learn the hard way?" The military leaders shared knowing looks. Humanity had spent generations imagining this scenario, creating countless stories and games about alien invasions. They had prepared not just physically, but mentally. Unlike the Empire, they knew exactly what they were getting into. "Send them our response," Thompson ordered. At Mars Command's communication center, Lieutenant Parker's fingers flew over the console, preparing to transmit humanity's message. The response they had drafted was simple, direct, and carried the weight of humanity's entire violent history. "To the Galactic Empire, we have spent our entire history fighting ourselves. Our technology, our tactics, our very nature has been forged in constant conflict. Every weapon we create, we have tested on ourselves. Every defense we build, we have built to survive our own attacks. You threaten us with your power. We understand power. You promise to teach us civilization. We have built and rebuilt civilizations from the ashes of our wars countless times. You don't want to see what happens when humanity has a common enemy to fight. Run. Earth Defense Command." As the message transmitted across space, Thompson looked at the holographic faces of Earth's military leaders. "Begin mass production of the Phoenix-class ships," he ordered. "Activate all deep space defense platforms. And most importantly, implement the Scattered Stars Protocol." The leaders nodded. Scattered Stars was humanity's masterstroke, a plan to ensure that even if Earth fell, humanity would survive, hidden among the stars, growing stronger, learning, adapting, and preparing to strike back. "They think we're primitive because we build our ships with metal instead of energy shields," Thompson said quietly. They'll learn that while energy shields can fail in an instant, metal can be bent, broken, and reforged, just like humanity. The command center hummed with activity as Earth prepared for war. In space, the Empire's fleet commanders received humanity's message. They laughed at its simplicity, its audacity. But High Commander Reed, watching from his flagship, felt a chill run down his spine. The humans hadn't begged. They hadn't surrendered. They had warned the Empire to run. The Imperial fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system, their golden ships gleaming in the starlight. Fleet Commander Turner stood proudly on his bridge, watching as 500 warships moved into perfect attack formation. His tentacles rippled with anticipation. This would be a quick and simple victory for the Empire. Primitive defenders detected, his sensor officer reported. 120 human vessels approaching from their red planet. Their ships appear to be. The officer paused, confused. Made entirely of metal, sir. Turner laughed. No energy shields. This will be even easier than expected. Prepare the standard conquest formation. Let's show these humans real power. The human fleet approached slowly, their dark metal ships looking crude and bulky compared to the Empire's elegant vessels. Turner noticed something odd about their formation. There wasn't one. The human ships moved in seemingly random patterns, no two ships following the same course. Sir, his tactical officer called out, we're detecting unusual energy readings from the human vessels. They're constantly changing. Turner dismissed the concern with a wave of his tentacles. Begin the attack. Standard protocol. Disable their engines first, then communications. The Imperial fleet fired their first volley. Beautiful streams of energy weapons designed to overload and disable enemy shields. But these humans had no shields to overload. Instead, the energy splashed against thick metal hulls. Where the energy weapons hit, the metal seemed to shift and change. Impossible. Turner's science officer shouted. Their hull metal is adapting to our weapons. It's learning to resist the energy patterns. Before Turner could respond, the human ships opened fire. Instead of energy weapons, they launched solid projectiles, thousands of them, each barely larger than a human fist. The Imperial ships' energy shields flared as they easily deflected the primitive attacks. Turner laughed again. Projectile weapons. How barbaric. His words cut off as warning alarms screamed across his bridge. The human projectiles that had bounced off their shields hadn't disappeared. They remained in space, their tiny engines firing, changing course. As the Imperial ships adjusted their shields to defend against a new wave of fire, the first wave struck from behind. Shields are calibrated for frontal assault. The defense officer yelled. These projectiles, they're waiting for shield gaps. Across the Imperial fleet, ships began reporting shield failures. The tiny human projectiles burrowed through hull plating, detonating inside the ships. Unlike energy weapons that overloaded systems, these physical explosions ripped ships apart from the inside. Adjust formation, Turner ordered. Concentrate fire on their largest vessels. But the human ships refused to behave properly. Instead of maintaining position when under attack, they broke apart, scattered, reformed in random patterns. Their metal hulls, scared by energy weapons, seemed to grow stronger with each hit. Sir, his tactical officer's voice shook, we're detecting thousands of smaller objects launching from the human ships. They look like the escape pods we destroyed in training exercises. Turner's blood ran cold as he realized the truth. The humans hadn't built their ships to win a traditional space battle. They'd built them to survive, to adapt, and to launch wave after wave of automated weapons that learned from each attack. Fall back, Turner ordered as 3 more Imperial ships exploded. Reform the fleet at. A massive explosion rocked his flagship. Warning lights flashed everywhere. Through his view screen, Turner watched in horror as the elegant Imperial formation broke apart. Human ships darted between their lines, their crude metal hulls now virtually immune to standard Imperial weapons. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the humans." On his screen, a human military commander appeared. The human didn't gloat or demand surrender. He simply said, "This was your warning shot. We fought for thousands of years to perfect the art of war. Did you really think we wouldn't be ready for you?" As Turner watched his perfect fleet fall into chaos, he remembered the human's warning message. "We've spent our entire history fighting ourselves." Now he understood. The Empire had perfected fighting weaker enemies. But these humans, they had perfected fighting equals. They didn't expect to overpower their enemies. They expected to outlast them, outthink them, and most terrifyingly, learn from them. The Empire's first strike had failed. And worse, Turner realized, they had just taught humanity exactly how Imperial ships worked. The Imperial Council chamber had lost its usual calm atmosphere. Holograms flickered across the crystal table, showing recordings of their disastrous first battle. High Commander Reed watched his fellow council members' faces shift from disbelief to anger as Fleet Commander Turner's report played. "Their ships," Turner's hologram explained, voice still shaking. "The metal they're made from, it changes. Every time we hit them with the same weapon, the damage gets less and less. It's like the metal remembers the attack and learns to resist it." Council member Blake's crystalline form darkened with worry. "How is this possible? They're supposed to be primitive." Reed stepped forward, activating a new hologram. This one showed a human ship, its dark hull marked with energy weapon impacts. "Our scientists have analyzed their technology. It's not primitive. It's different. Where we focused on energy and elegance, they focused on survival and adaptation." The hologram zoomed in, showing the ship's hull at a microscopic level. Tiny machines, billions of them, moved through the metal structure, constantly rebuilding and reinforcing it. "Nanomachines," Reed explained. "Simple ones, by our standards. But they don't try to stop our attacks. They learn from them. Every hit teaches their ships how to be stronger." Another council member, Lord White, slammed his fist on the table. "Then we'll use different weapons. We have 10,000 years of technological advancement." "We've tried," Reed said quietly. "In the week since the first battle, we've used 15 different weapon types. Look at the results." New holograms appeared, showing more battles. Each time, the human ships took heavy damage from new weapons, but by the end of each engagement, they had adapted. Worse, they were now using modified versions of Imperial weapons against them. "They're not just learning to defend," Blake observed, her crystal structure pulsing with anxiety. "They're learning to attack. Those projectile weapons they use, the latest ones are partially phased, like our torpedoes." "Impossible," White shouted. "They can't have reverse-engineered our technology so quickly." Reed played another recording. This one showed a human ship breaking apart under Imperial fire. But instead of destroying it, the attack had revealed something terrifying. The ship's internal structure was a maze of different technologies, some Imperial, some clearly from other advanced civilizations. "They've been preparing for this for generations," Reed said. "Every piece of alien technology that ever reached Earth, crashed ships, lost probes, even space debris. They studied it all. They didn't try to copy it exactly. Instead, they adapted it," Blake finished. "Made it work with their own technology. Made it better." The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Empire had spent millennia perfecting their technology, making it elegant and efficient. But the humans, they took whatever worked and made it their own, creating hybrid technologies that were ugly but effective. "Their weapons are crude," Turner's hologram continued. "But they don't need to be elegant. They just need to work once. Once they're through our shields, the physical damage." He shuddered. "Energy weapons overload systems. Their weapons tear ships apart." Reed activated one final hologram, A human transmission intercepted after their latest battle. Two human commanders were speaking. Their shields are predictable, one said. Same patterns every time. They've never had to change them. Keep hitting them with the kinetic spreaders, the other replied. Make them adjust their shield harmonics. Once they do, we'll have forced them to adapt. And adaptation means opportunity. Reed shut off the hologram. Don't you see? He asked the council. We're not just fighting their weapons, we're fighting their way of thinking. Every time we force them to adapt, they get stronger. Every time we show them our technology, they learn to counter it. And worse. Worse? Blake asked. They're teaching other species to think like them, Reed said grimly. 3 of our subject worlds have already begun experimenting with hybrid technologies. The humans aren't just fighting us, they're changing how the galaxy thinks about warfare. The council chamber erupted in angry debate, but Reed noticed something interesting. For the first time in 10,000 years, the council members weren't speaking in perfect, formal patterns. They were adapting. Perhaps, Reed thought, that was humanity's most dangerous weapon of all. Admiral Rogers stood before the holographic display in Earth's combined military command, watching thousands of dots representing both human and Imperial ships move across space. But unlike the Empire's neat formations, the human ships appeared to move in chaos. That chaos, however, was carefully planned. Operation Trojan is ready, Colonel Martinez reported, her face illuminated by the blue glow of tactical displays. All ship groups confirm ready status. Rogers nodded, his experienced eyes tracking the Imperial supply lines that stretched across their section of space. The Empire had expected a simple conquest. Instead, they had been drawn into a war of attrition, exactly what humans did best. Send the go signal, Rogers ordered. Let's show them how Earth fights back. Across space, human ships began their attacks. But they didn't target the Imperial warships. Instead, they struck at supply lines, communication relays, and repair stations. The Empire's perfect military machine ran on perfect logistics, and humanity had spent centuries learning how to break supply chains. On his Imperial command ship, Fleet Commander Turner watched in horror as alerts flooded his screens. What do you mean? We lost contact with Supply Base 7. Where are their defenders? His tactical officer struggled to make sense of the sensor readings. Sir, the human ships. They're not where they're supposed to be. They're everywhere. Small groups, hitting multiple targets. Our formation can't adapt fast enough. Turner's tentacles twisted in frustration as he watched the tactical display. The humans weren't fighting like a proper military force. Their ships appeared in groups of 3 or 4, struck critical targets, then vanished into the darkness of space. Worse, they seemed to be using Imperial technology against them. Sir, his communication officer called out, we're detecting Imperial distress signals from Sector 9. Impossible, Turner said. We have no ships in that sector. The signals, they're perfect copies of our protocols. Human ships are broadcasting false Imperial signals, confusing our response teams. Back on Earth, Rogers watched as Operation Trojan unfolded. Decades of studying alien signals and technology were paying off. Every Imperial ship that broke formation to investigate a false distress call found itself ambushed by waiting human vessels. Report from Battle Group Delta, Martinez announced. They've successfully used the captured Imperial communication codes. 3 enemy supply convoys diverted straight into our trap zones. Rogers allowed himself a small smile. The Empire's greatest strength, their standardization and perfect protocols, had become their weakness. They couldn't change their codes fast enough to counter human infiltration. Message from Scout Group 7. Another officer reported. They've made contact with the rebellion on Imperial Mining World 13. The locals want to learn our adaptation techniques. This was humanity's secret weapon, not just their ability to adapt, but to teach others to do the same. Across Imperial space, subjected species watched as humans proved the mighty Empire wasn't invincible. More importantly, they showed that primitive solutions could overcome perfect technology. In the Imperial Palace, High Commander Reed received the damage reports with growing dread. The humans weren't trying to win massive battles or capture territory. They were bleeding the Empire, cut by cut, forcing them to adapt or die. "They're fighting like guerrillas in space," Reed muttered, remembering his studies of Earth's military history: hit and run, ambush tactics, psychological warfare. A junior officer rushed in with more bad news. "Sir, human ships are broadcasting scenes from their victory at Mars across all Imperial channels. They've broken our encryption." Reed watched as images of broken Imperial ships played across every screen in Imperial space. The humans weren't just defeating them. They were showing the entire galaxy how to do it. In Earth's command center, Rogers studied the latest intelligence reports. The Empire's perfect supply chain was breaking down. Their ships, designed for large-scale battles, couldn't effectively chase down small, agile human attack groups. "Send word to all battle groups," Rogers ordered. "Phase 2 begins now. Show them why humanity's greatest weapon isn't our technology. It's our ability to fight in ways they never imagined." The stars filled with the light of battle as humanity's counterattack continued. The Empire was learning a harsh lesson. In their quest for perfection, they have forgotten how to face an enemy who embraced chaos. The Imperial Palace shook as another protest wave swept through the capital city. High Commander Reed stood at his window, watching as crowds of citizens from different species filled the streets. Signs in 100 different languages demanded the same thing: end the war with Earth. Inside the council chamber, the scene was equally chaotic. For the first time in 10,000 years, council members shouted over each other, their perfect order shattered. "We must use the forbidden weapons." Lord White slammed his fist on the crystal table. "These humans leave us no choice. The forbidden weapons would destroy everything we claim to protect." Council member Blake's crystal form pulsed with angry colors. "We would be monsters." The latest battle reports floated above the table in holographic form. They told a story that no one in the Empire had ever expected to read. Defeat after defeat, not in grand battles, but in 1,000 small cuts that were bleeding the Empire dry. Fleet Commander Turner entered the chamber, his tentacles dragging with exhaustion. "We've lost contact with another 30 colony worlds," he reported. "They're not destroyed. They've joined the humans." The council chamber fell silent. This was the Empire's greatest fear, not just defeat in battle, but the collapse of their perfect society. The humans weren't just winning the war, they were changing how the galaxy thought. "Show them," Reed ordered quietly. Turner activated a new hologram. It showed scenes from different Imperial worlds. On one, the formerly obedient slave species were building ships using human designs. On another, Imperial citizens were adopting human-style adaptive technology instead of the Empire's standard models. "This is what the humans really are," Reed explained. "Not just warriors, but teachers. They're showing our suppressed worlds that perfection isn't strength, adaptation is." 17 Imperial fleets have reported critical supply shortages, Turner continued. "The humans, they're not fighting fair. They strike our supply lines, corrupt our communication networks, and disappear before we can respond. Our perfect formations are useless against an enemy that refuses to follow military protocol." A junior officer burst into the chamber, something that had never happened before. "Urgent news. 3 more core worlds have declared independence. They're using human encryption methods. We can't shut down their communications." Lord White's face turned pale. "The core worlds? Impossible. They're the most loyal." "They were loyal," Blake interrupted, "until the humans showed them a different way. Our own history speaks against us. We haven't changed our basic society in 10,000 years. The humans show us a species that thrives on change." Reed activated one final hologram, a message intercepted from Earth's military command. The human admiral's words echoed through the chamber. "We don't need to defeat their entire fleet. We don't need to conquer their worlds. We just need to show the galaxy that the Empire isn't perfect. That adaptation is stronger than perfection. Every world that learns to think for itself is a victory. The council members watched in stunned silence as more reports flooded in. Imperial worlds weren't just rebelling. They were evolving, combining Imperial technology with human innovation, creating new solutions the Empire had never imagined. Our society is based on perfect order, Blake said softly. But the humans, they've built a society that thrives on disorder, on constant change. And now they're teaching others to do the same. Reed looked out at the crowds still filling the streets. Among the protesters, he saw Imperial citizens standing alongside former slave species. They weren't just demanding an end to the war. They were demanding the right to adapt, to change, to be imperfect. We face a choice, Reed announced to the council. We can use the forbidden weapons, destroy Earth, and prove to the galaxy that we're the monsters they now think we are. Or, White demanded. Or we can learn from the humans. We can adapt. For the first time in 10,000 years, we can change. The council chamber erupted in argument again. But Reed noticed something important. They were arguing like humans now, challenging ideas, suggesting alternatives. The Empire was changing, whether they wanted to or not. The meeting room on Neutral Space Station, Alpha stood as a testament to how much things had changed. One side of the table held the human delegation, their simple military uniforms a stark contrast to the elaborate robes of the Imperial representatives across from them. Admiral Rogers sat quietly, studying High Commander Reed's face. The Imperial leader looked different from the recordings they'd seen at the start of the war. The perfect posture was gone, replaced by something more human. The Empire, Reed began, his voice carrying none of its former arrogance, proposes an immediate cessation of hostilities. The words hung in the air. 6 months of war had accomplished what no species had managed in 10,000 years. But it wasn't the military victories that had brought them to this table. It was fear. Not fear of defeat, but fear of what humanity was becoming. Our terms are simple, Rogers replied, sliding a data tablet across the table. Earth and all human colonies remain independent. A neutral zone will be established between our territories. Reed looked at the terms, then at his own data tablet showing the latest Imperial reports. Another dozen worlds had declared independence this morning, using techniques they'd learned from humans. The Empire wasn't just losing a war, it was losing its identity. You must understand, Reed said quietly, what you've done to us. Our society stood unchanged for 10,000 years. Perfect. Orderly. Stagnant, Rogers corrected, unable to adapt. Reed nodded slowly. We thought we were teaching the galaxy civilization. But you? He looked at the humans with a mix of fear and respect. You taught them something far more powerful. You taught them to change. Screens around the room showed scenes from across the galaxy. Imperial worlds were transforming. The rigid uniformity was breaking down, replaced by a chaos of innovation. Ships of mixed human and Imperial design flew alongside pure Imperial vessels. Former slave species worked as equals with their previous masters. The Empire won't survive if this continues, Reed admitted. Every battle teaches you more about us. Every defeat makes you stronger. And worst of all, you're teaching others to be like you. Rogers allowed himself a small smile. That was always the difference between us. You conquered to enforce uniformity. We fight to protect diversity. You see 1,000 worlds moving in perfect formation. We see 1,000 worlds thinking for themselves. A junior Imperial officer entered with an urgent report. Reed read it, his face growing paler. 3 more core worlds have announced their independence. They're using diplomatic techniques learned from Earth. The war is over, Rogers said firmly. Not because we defeated your fleets, but because we showed the galaxy a better way. Every world you've conquered over 10,000 years now knows they have a choice. Reed looked at the peace terms again. They were surprisingly gentle. No demands for reparations, No forced disarmament. Just a simple requirement. The Empire must recognize the right of all worlds to choose their own path. The Council will never agree, Reed started, but his voice lacked conviction. The Council already has, Rogers replied. They've seen what happens when an unchanging force meets one that adapts. Evolution always wins. Reed picked up his ceremonial pen, a 10,000-year-old artifact of Imperial authority. With hands that trembled slightly, he signed the peace treaty. As he did, he realized the humans had achieved something far more powerful than military victory. They had made the Empire feel fear. Not fear of destruction, but fear of irrelevance. Fear of being left behind, as the galaxy learned to adapt and change. As the treaty signatures were transmitted across space, celebrations erupted on countless worlds. But on Earth, in the Combined Military Command, Admiral Rogers watched the scenes with thoughtful eyes. We didn't just win a war today, he told his staff. We started a revolution. The Empire will have to adapt now, or it will fall apart. And we'll be here, teaching the galaxy that strength doesn't come from perfection. It comes from the ability to change. In the depths of space, Imperial ships began withdrawing to their new borders. But they weren't flying in perfect formation anymore. Some had already started incorporating human innovations. The Empire had learned its first lesson in adaptation. The war was over. The evolution had begun.